plan to try and force the submission of world powers into his hands, because he's the only one that knows how to end the projection and show himself to be the victor, because his whole supervillain outfit is tied to the projection itself. So it's a little bit of a spoiler if you haven't seen it, but if you don't really care, it illustrates the sophistication of this technology in a revelation of the method capacity in popular kiddie movies at this point. And it's just unreal, the level of sophistication that is, it's not so fantasy. I mean, we'll get into the holographic tech throughout our podcast, because I mean, it really is a breakthrough technology, and combined with this drone stuff, it is really quite the threat. And this just shows a small example of, a sort of fantasy depiction of what that kind of technology could look like.
It's not real, it's not real, it's not real! Whoa. That's awesome.
William, I've got drones breaking formation.
Well, maybe they hit a flock of birds or something. You're fine.
Well, I want to see what's happening there. I'm taking manual control.
Do you see anything?
Yeah. And I'm gonna kill him.
Oh, I hope this works!
You got me?
I gotcha.
Wow. So there you have it, like indescribably real holographic projections that appear to be causing material damage based on cloaked drones that are operating from within the projection with weaponry. So with the deepfake tech that they have today, combined with the holographic tech, there could literally be a cloaked drone apparating people into existence.
We haven't even, I didn't queue up all the videos that exist out there on the deep web of various things spotted in various locations around the world that would basically point to the testing, the beta testing of such technology. There are also many patents that exist which point to this, and of course the Project Bluebeam papers, which also sort of tie that bow nice and tight.
And what about an asteroid, huh? You could totally simulate an asteroid with this tech. 100%. You would make it with drone level explosives.
Well, since you bring that up, let's actually skip ahead to point 10.
Yeah.
And that is I think another singularity is
massive.
The space hoax / force.
Yeah.
And so what I mean by that is we now have Space Force, a dedicated military branch that is supposed to deal with defense, quote unquote, defense related activities to do with space. But what it's really, I mean,
it's a racket.
I mean, it's unbelievable. First of all, they've already sort of claimed jurisdiction over space in the fact that they regulate the electromagnetic frequency. Mm-hmm. They claim jurisdiction over the airspace with the FAA. They claim jurisdiction over the airspace in terms of the EPA regulating environmental standards. So they already sort of govern space. You know, what is this all about? If they already govern space, and they even they already have space related arms of the Marines and the Naval Intelligence Office that deal with you know, reconnaissance, you know, quote unquote satellite operations, etc. So what the fuck is Space Force all about? But then when I say space hoax, I think we both agree that the subject of space and the space station and our place in the cosmos, it's all under the microscope in 2020. People, look, again, we're here in Orange County, North Carolina. In Cary, just down the road, was the largest flat Earth conference in the world.
Right.
Took place. Okay, whether that conference was promoting the truth or not is another subject altogether, but the point I'm making is the subject is getting into the mainstream conversation and is very much, I think, a singularity with the President of the United States announcing a space force, right? So what is this all about, in your opinion, Xavier? I mean, and the question I ask is, what is space and why has the government monopolized it?
Well, I mean, even beyond the Air Force and all of its capabilities to dominate the sky, this idea of a space force is, first of all, a sort of propagandistic exercise to cement the whole astro farce narrative about what we are, where we are, what existence is, and ultimately control the narrative around our significance and our finitude within that. And if you research previous posts of ours, you'll know that there's plenty of reason to be skeptical of the entire classification of the astrophysical system. And the problem with all of this new emerging drone tech and the holograph depiction and, you know, arming these drones and everything is that they can be used to simulate unreal, ultimately illusory events that are supposed to be triggered in the public's mind as a act of the cosmos. And the level of control that could be exacted with that sort of mass trickery is totally immense. And they've already gotten away with a huge heist of public funds, human potential, and the entire imagination of our species, really. So what's next is they could use that misconception to their incredibly violent advantage by subduing not just a nation, but the entire world's understanding of what's actually transpiring above them. And they could simulate asteroid strikes, they could simulate alien invasions, they could do all kinds of things to garner a massive consolidation of power under the guise of having to unite and create a global government to fend off some sort of alien or hostile galactic threat. And if people have already fooled themselves into not investigating some of the problems with that world conception, then it's not easy to fool people who are already fooling themselves. So in that sense, combining that level of technology with a mass misconception is a form of magic. It's a form of sophisticated black magic.
Yeah. And on the note of uniting the globe around a common purpose, I want to highlight MKP Kid on Instagram. He has a space hoax, Space Force focused Instagram, which really brings to social media some very interesting historical video fragments and other things that highlight sort of the ongoing propaganda around, number one, getting people on the same page as far as global governance is concerned to protect the community good, let's call it. And then also the ongoing space PR around the International Space Station, the orbiting satellites, and the alleged curvature that is depicted in NASA imagery. But this clip I want to highlight, just because of something you mentioned around uniting the globe around a common cause is a very popular series of speeches Ronald Reagan gave talking about this very thing. So.
Just think how easy if suddenly there was a threat to this world from some other species, from another planet, outside in the universe. We'd forget all the little local differences that we have between our countries. Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world. I've often wondered, what if all of us in the world discovered that we were threatened by a power from outer space, from another planet? I don't suppose we can wait for some alien race to come down and threaten us, but I think that between us, we can bring about that realization. Just think how easy if suddenly there was a threat to this world.
So this has been going on for a long time. Was talking to a friend about the fact that Werner von Braun was an ex-Nazi and worked with Walt Disney, to promote the space program, the future of space, and so on, which is now part of the mainstream. SpaceX, Virgin Galactic, all of these companies which are bidding for government contracts with the Department of Defense, the Pentagon, etc., to launch their H.G. Wells, their Werner von Braun-esque rockets into space to deliver, all sorts of things. So it's all, I think you're right. I think it's just part of a broader propaganda program to sort of get everybody on this. They have multiple avenues to sort of unite us. It's all about crises, whether it's, we have to unite against the communists or the terrorists or the aliens or the climate.
Right.
It's all in the same direction, which is global government.
That's right.
And if you can't talk about that, I don't want to talk to you. So,
right.
So with that, these things are sort of tied in with that. Artificial intelligence, it sort of plays into the surveillanceification, I think, of society, and how all this data is being aggregated and computed and processed, and for what ends. I think the question is liberator or savior. Automation, doesn't it have its place? You want to automate some things, right?
Well, it also could be a little bit of an enslaver too. Artificial intelligence, the more we outsource our own intelligence to an artificial apparatus or a computing power, the less intelligent we'll actually be, and more predictable, et cetera, et cetera.
Right. So, like, take drone opticon, for example. It's always going to be preferable for a human being to be observing the imagery that's coming back, rather than making decisions, especially weapons-grade decisions, based on an algorithm or a machine learning-based system. But some processes I could see being automated, like scanning a receipt instead of like writing down the item number by hand.
Mhm.
Those things make things faster and better. I would argue, more better efficient. So there's some things there, but the question is, who's going to be in control of artificial intelligence?
Yep. I mean, and we people can't just be sort of lulled into a complacency where it's like, oh well, we're not under that much threat now, so whatever the systems are in control now, they seem to be doing an okay job, so they might as well be in control of systems in the future.
And this goes right to number 8, virtual reality, which is another thing. So I don't know how much you pay attention to the video game industry, but Google has now dipped its toes. They're stepping in against Microsoft and Nintendo and Sony. And what did they release? A consoleless console. So it's called Stadia, and it's a cloud-based computing. So instead of having a console that drives software that's displayed on your computer, it is a literal cloud-based. So they have central data centers that are doing the processing and then providing you a stream, but yet there's still an input-output with the controller. I guess they depend on the internet latency, maybe part of the 5G network, to ensure that whole process is fast enough. But to me, this is an incremental step towards, number one, cloud-based virtual reality applications, and number two, the infrastructure development that will lead to, sort of multi-device hooks into a virtual reality system, be that Netflix or be that whatever the latest sim is, Life Sim or World of Warcraft or whatever. The question is, will they be able to get us to adopt it full time?
Well, there's been a lot of predictive programming around that. A lot of entertainment, Black Mirror, Ready Player One.
Yeah.
All of these different sort of priming the pump and normalizing this idea that, hey, you can just live out your fantasies in the virtual world. And who needs to bother with this one? Just come and join the next plane of existence, so to speak. And yeah, I mean, the John Carmack disclosure is pretty important.
Yeah, one of the episodes of Black Mirror, they focus on a Google Home-like device, a little device that sits on your kitchen table, but you actually download your consciousness into. So like there's a service that downloads your consciousness, puts it in the Home Pod, whatever. It's a little thing. It looks like this cup here with like a speaker and everything, and it's you. It's to the program. They exist. Like that program is you in a program, and they are so like the service, you basically go and you in the show, you put a device on your head, it downloads who you are, and then embeds it in this device. But then that personality structure, which is driven by the program, is actually in that little device, and there's a time of a training, because you go from being you to being you in this device, which is required to drive the home. So like the Home Pod in this show, in this episode, they're doing everything from like pressing down the toast to getting the lights to the right level, to setting the temperature and all this stuff, like that's like for material convenience of the actual living human soul. And the dark part of the black part of of this episode is that when the personality structure is downloaded into the machine, there's like a training period, but time is manipulatable in that program. So to the individual in there, like they're just told to do these tasks, and they're like, well, hold on, where am I? You know, like I'm supposed to do this, and they're like, you need to do this because this is your new reality. We're just gonna make time. You know, they can't die or anything. They could just be bored forever.
Oh god.
You know, and so like they basically, there's an administrator that basically forces that personality structure within the program to like just be bored for 6 months until they decide, okay, I'm gonna actually get with the program and like do what I'm supposed to do. Wow. But like to the person who paid for the service, that 6 months it's not even, it's like a 24-hour turnaround period before the person is trained. So that's there's an episode you got to check out, Black Mirror. But yeah, I would recommend people check out, we talked about this in a prior episode, John Carmack. He's the inventor of the Doom series video games, which actually was sort of inspired by the Army and their requirements for instinctive shooting training and simulation training for first person shooting type scenarios. And he left the company he founded, id Software, which id is
beneath the ego, the sort of sub ego.
Exactly. And it, you know, his id Software is triggering on the primal reptilian brain of violence and this and that. But he goes on the Joe Rogan program. He's now the director of like technology at Facebook. Oculus, subdivision Oculus, which was a Kickstarter acquired by Facebook. And he talks about virtual reality, what excites him about it, and whether people will adopt it. And he's like, you know, right now, 70% of users of virtual reality, they're doing mainstream things like watching Netflix. And to me, that's just like the incremental step.
Yeah.
From A to B, you know, start with things you're used to, like watching Home Alone, but with virtual reality, so you don't have to like see the people sitting next to you on the plane.
It's like you're a drone inside the house next to Macaulay Culkin. It's like a virtual simulation. Just you kind of view from nowhere a little bit.
Yeah.
Hypothetical introduction of your perspective into a fictional entertainment environment. Yeah.
But it's going to move very quickly into cloud-based virtual reality programs that are extremely immersive and basically almost like a psychedelic trip. I mean, at a certain point, if you see the progression of graphical technology, I mean, I was excited when I got the Nintendo 64 in 1997. Now it's 2020, and it's just like a whole nother world. You got like gyroscopic VR headsets that they're so far advanced from like Epcot Center at Disney World, the exhibitions of virtual reality that they had there, which were supposed to be futuristic. They are archaic compared to the shit you can order for $300 online now.
Right.
You can strap your cell phone to your face and, I mean, get some pretty sensational experiences through that. So it's going to be very enticing. It's just a matter of how willing is the global population in adopting Zuckerberg and Zuckerberg's vision of.
Well, as long as they consider themselves the global population, it might actually be exceedingly easy.
That's the big question. So moving on from that, we've sort of already touched on geostorms, climate war. This is a big subject of our prior conversations. Whether Greta Thunberg and her crusade is, is it well-meaning? Is it actually scientifically based? And then juxtaposed with what we just saw with John Brennan talking about the aerosol, atmospheric aerosol injections and so stratospheric aerosol injections. I'm sorry. my question is this going to be, I'm trying to force it in my personal life. When we talk about climate change, it's
more like climate war.
Can we rephrase it to climate war and actually acknowledge the real things that are going on? You know, the BP oil spills, the fluoridation of the water supply, the ionospheric manipulation using high frequency microwaves, the subterranean nuclear, quote unquote nuclear basically high impact explosives to shift tectonic plates and create earthquake weapons. Can we talk about that instead of CO2 in 2020?
Absurd.
My God.
Absurd. It's so passe.
We have a special guest in the studio tonight, Jamie, who's going to be hopefully he's going to be our switcher in the future. He's here shadowing and training, but we were talking before we started recording tonight about this, and he shared with me this really funny. There was a prank call. Somebody prank called Maxine Waters, pretending to be Greta Thunberg. And and it's really funny if you haven't seen it. So I'm going to play some of that.
Little comedy relief here.
Yes.
Congresswoman?
Yes,
I have Greta and her father, Savante, on the line.
thank you very much.
Congresswoman, this is Greta's father. And here's a Greta.
Yes.
Hello,
on the line.
Congresswoman Waters. Hello, I'm very happy to talk to you.
Well, thank you both for calling me, and I'm very anxious to hear from you.
Yes, I know that yours called you Aunt Maxine. That's so sweet, I think.
Thank you.
Is that true?
Absolutely, yes.
Oh, that's so nice. We have wonderful climate strike to support the ecology of Chungachanga Island. Thousands of people came to meet me. We are standing together against the pollution and to save our planet. I'm very glad that my cause finds so much support. I was in California last week. It was so great.
Well, thank you, and I'm so glad you came to my state. And of course, I know all about you. You have made quite a big thunder on this issue. I am really, really very proud of you and the work that you're doing.
We're now in North Carolina. So we are in a climate strike here in a meeting.
Okay, so you're in the meeting now? The meeting has started?
Yes, already.
Yes. We're there now. We're here now at the meeting, and if you will allow me, I will put you on a speakerphone. So yes.
Yeah. And we will let you say to people who is around here.
I think that it will be great honors for them to hear you. So you can say some words of support to all the people who came here to support the problems of the wonderful island and the ecology of the world.
Which island are they targeting?
Chungachanga.
Chungachanga?
Yes.
Okay. That island is particularly threatened? Okay. Get involved. So let me get started, okay?
Yes, we are ready.
Everybody.
You can start.
Hello, everybody. This is Congresswoman Maxine Waters, and I am so pleased to be on this telephone call with Greta Thunberg. I am just so proud of her and her father, Savante Thunberg, and the work that they are doing. As you know, Greta is an environmental activist, and she took part in the United Nations Climate Summit in New York recently, and she has been traveling, and she has been the greatest advocate for what is happening with our climate and the environment. And I'm very pleased that she's with you in North Carolina, where you're focusing on protecting the very important island of Chungachanga. And so I could just go on and tell you that I believe that she certainly should win the Nobel Peace Prize for what she is doing. But what's most important right now is that you all there who are working so hard on this issue to make sure that the island is protected, that you give her all of the support that you can possibly give her, because she's giving you all of the support that she can give to you. And this is so important. She has made a mark all over the world now, and a lot of attention is focused on her, and people are listening to what she is saying. And I want you to know that I am listening to her, and I am paying attention to her, as many of the members of Congress are now paying attention to her. So I'm just delighted to be on this telephone call with her today. Thank you very much. Greta, are you still there?
Thank you for that words. It was a great honor for us to hear your voice. Could you help to solve the environmental problems of the island of Chungachanga?
Well, now that I'm focused on it, I'm going to do everything that I can, thanks to you. Yes, I will work with everybody to do everything that we can to save the islands.
I want to tell you something confidential about the meeting of Greta and Trump in the UN climate meeting.
Yes, and I said to my dad that I want to share it with you. So it was really terrible. I'm terrified of what Trump's doing, and I even can't sleep or eat when I see him on TV. And it was really terrible meeting in the UN building in September with him, and I had nightmares afterwards. It's terrible. Oh, I don't know how to say about it. I saw him in the hallway. He was with security. I shouted at him, sign the Paris Climate Agreement again. He came over. He laid it towards me and said softly, listen to me carefully, little girl. You will never achieve your goal. Like this congressional fool tried to accuse me.
He said you will never achieve your goal?
He continued.
Oh, my goodness. Did you ask him if he would rethink signing the Paris Agreement? Was that your question to him?
Yes, that was. He added that. And you know what? I will tell you the truth. Anyway, I really wanted to push the Ukraine president to put my competitor on trial. And he will go to trial with you, with your bunch of ecology and Democrats. I already have a separate cage for all of you. I was crying.
Oh, my God. Did you cry?
Yes, I was crying, and even I cry now because it's very hard to remember this.
He said her, you know, little girl, nobody believe you anyway. I'll tell you the truth. I really pushed on Ukrainian president, and you know that you will never achieve your goals like these congressional fools who accuse me. And you know what? So nobody will believe you. You will be in trial like my competitor.
Yes, he added
oh
that
my
nobody
God.
believed
He
me.
mentioned Ukrainian president?
Yes, he said that. And he added, nobody will believe you anyway.
Nobody will believe you anyway. And what else did he say?
That's all. And
it was enough for me. Yes, it was terrible.
Okay. Did you
He
cry?
said like that I'm silly little girl. He laughed at me and ran away after that.
But you know, Greta always has a tape recorder in her pocket to record her performances. And those words of Mr. Trump got on the record. So we have audio evidence of that.
Are you going to be in Washington anytime soon? I want you to come and meet with me in Washington.
Okay. I think it would help to finish what you have started. I mean, impeachment process. I think if it's possible, Greta could make a speech in Congress if you will need it.
Oh, yes, I am absolutely still working. We are working very hard. We're putting together the facts, and we're going after him. We're going to try everything that we have to impeach him. Yes.
Yep.
Is it racist of me to say that Maxine Waters is not the brightest crayon in the box?
I mean, she's probably every bit as important as the president. If you deny her popularity, I mean, probably horrible. And how long has she been a careerist politician at this point?
Can't keep track of this. I can't keep track.
40 years.
Well,
her district is like super high crime rate and in serious budget issues, and I mean it's one of the more notorious districts in California for why people don't like California.
Just something she's dealing with. It has nothing to do with her or her leadership.
No, not at all. Yeah, I mean, what's amazing to me is, to the extent that this call sort of exposes just the buffoonery.
Yeah,
of your average representative.
That you could. Even if this really was Greta,
right?
The buffoonery of her just taking the call. You're gonna put me on microphone at some rally, and I'm just. She didn't even know the island Chumachanga. She didn't even say the wrong name right.
Right.
That she had just heard. She just went with it.
Yeah.
And it's like, in sales, in business, that's called a bullshitter.
Right.
That is a bullshitter.
Right.
You'd smell that from a mile away.
Right. But, I mean, she can collect taxpayer dollars.
For fluoridated populations who are sky-rizzied up and, chemtrailed and all this, they, I guess she resonates with some people. Or the votes are just digitally rigged and could be kind of a combination of both, I guess.
It's true. I mean, it really is kind of a little glimpse into the psychology of these quote-unquote representatives that we have. And she's kind of an outlying case, I'm sure. I'm sure there's some quality representatives out there. But, again, it's getting to the point where it's representation without representation.
Right.
I mean, the Congress is like a ceremonial, window dressing.
We're finding that out.
I mean,
that's a positive to the Trump presidency, is so much has been revealed. For better or for worse. And there are a lot of people who said that about Obama as well. Oh, he's just being corrupt so to expose corruption. It's like, I mean, if people are getting more aware of it, that's cool, but that doesn't make the bad things right.
Right. It doesn't excuse anything.
And it also has to result in action. It can't just be, I saw this on the news, I need to actually react to it in my, however it personally affects you. It affects us all differently. But anyways, moving on from that, we're kind of caught up now on a numerical basis, I think, to Antarctica Gate, which ties back to Dronopticon and really so many other subjects, because when you talk about censorship, you talk about space hoax and Space Force, you talk about what some other subjects we're going to get into, like Ancient History Gate.
Right.
There has been so much news about Antarctica in 2019. I just feel like 2020 is, you talked about birth pangs earlier. We are larval stage. I think the questions have been asked in 2019. Now, 2020, are we going to get the answers? Are we going to go boldly where we have not gone before? And I say we because we are different than the establishment that we've been talking about, the controllers who have monopolized space, monopolized surveillance, monopolized
Scientific
scientific narratives, exploration, the technology, the drones, and all of that. The facility to actually explore unexplored land on this plane. Right. So I found some really cool videos. We're not going to play much of it because this is like, an hour-long presentation. But in the flat Earth community, right? People question the existence of satellites, rightly so, because of all of NASA's chicanery, the craziness of gravity and orbits, and also how satellites can exist in the thermosphere for decades on end and operation. Me and Jamie over here were talking about the solar. I don't know if you've ever driven by the solar farm in Butner at the federal prison. 20 years, those solar panels are dead. And they're on in, North Carolina sun. Think about beyond the quote unquote atmosphere, in the thermosphere, average temperature between 1,000 and 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit. One of the major ingredients of a solar panel is silver, which has a melting temperature much lower than that. So we know that NASA and the establishment have imagery because of the drones that we saw earlier. All the gigapixel sensor mosaics that they're building and all that. So we know that how they do that. But so we saw the drones, but another major component is actually one of the oldest forms of flight, and that's ballooning. So check this out.
For me, is being able to build the balloon technology itself to be able to enable all of these missions. If you're going to be able to do any of these other cool things, you need a good balloon platform. And that's really where the mission that I worked on comes in. So I was on a mission called Bit Stable, and it was really about advancing the pointing capability of these platforms. So let's talk about Bit Stable. So Bit, these are maybe a little tortured acronyms, but Bit was the balloon-borne imaging testbed. Engineers are maybe known for being bad about that. But the balloon-borne imaging testbed was done by the University of Toronto, and they were building the gondola part of our balloon. So the idea is that you attach your balloon up here off of a tether, and this gondola is what held the stable portion. And so stable, sub-arcsecond telescope and balloon experiment, was done here at JPL with a contribution of the camera by one of the folks in the UK. And so Bit Stable, the whole mission overall, was a technology demonstration mission with the intent of proving that we can get really stable pointing platforms off balloons. So the main objectives, and here's where I get into my engineerese, is to demonstrate 100 milliarcsecond pointing stability over at least 60 seconds, 1 sigma per axis, given a certain core stage pointing to within 2 arcseconds over 120 seconds. So what does that actually mean? If you're sitting on a really bouncy car and you're trying to take a picture out the window, you're going to get blurry images, right? The problem here is that if your pointing platform is shaking all over the place and you're trying to take a picture of something extremely far away and maybe even very dim or small, you're going to get blurry images and maybe not even see it. So what 100 milliarcseconds actually means is if you were sitting on Earth and were looking at the moon, so that distance, you'd be able to point your telescope such that it didn't vary by more than 2 Statue of Liberties standing on the moon. So it's really tight pointing. This was an order of magnitude or so better than some of the capabilities out there. So it was one of those things that we were really trying to do to prove that this telescope could really actually achieve this really tight pointing from a balloon. So we also had a couple other objectives. We were using a point source of light, and this is because we didn't want to use Jupiter, because if all you can use is Jupiter, it's nice and fat and got a lot of light coming off of it, then the only thing you can do with your science instrument is stare at Jupiter, and maybe you want to see at other things. And so we wanted to use a point source of light in the visible spectrum, because as Jose showed you, if you look at the universe in the visible spectrum, there's a lot of really cool points of light all over the map. And so you can look at any part of the sky and probably find a star that'll work for you, as opposed to, say, the infrared or something like that. We also had a signal-to-noise ratio, which is basically identifying how dim we wanted to be able to see the star. So we wanted to be able to look at relatively dim stars because they're more common in the sky. If you can only look at, again, really bright stars, you get to look at that one part of the sky. But if you can prove that it's a pretty dim star and you can look at any part of the sky, it gives you a better opportunity to do things like surveys or maps. And we wanted to do it on a balloon above 25 kilometers, because that's where the technology is really going to make the difference for the scientists. Okay, so why is that hard? The first is really thermal and dynamic disturbances. So
How many kilometers did she say?
25.
Okay, that's like 120,000 feet up or something.
Amateur balloons can go that high.
Yeah.
And what do they see?
Not a lot of planet in the form of curvature. That's right. Neil deGrasse Tyson said that from that height, everything looks flat.
He said from like 70,000.
He said even from as high as the guy who did the Red Bull jump.
Right.
So that stuff is flat. Because the idea is, if you're a teeny little ant, going half a millimeter off of this giant beach ball, you're not going to be able to see curvature. Oh, but what about ships disappearing over the horizon? Wait, that's only at 3 miles away. Wait a second. That's a double standard.
When you stand on the shoulders of those who came before, you might just see far enough to realize the Earth isn't flat. And by the way, this is called gravity.
What is gravity?
You have no idea. Okay, next question. When you stand on the shoulders of those...
Yeah. Just buy the new book, just accept that, he's a really
I talked to some religious people
in astrophysics, and that means he's incredibly successful and accomplished, and you don't look into his Prince Hall Masonic involvement. That's,
I was on Jimmy Kimmel once.
Right. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And for me,
all right,
is
balloons as platforms. Pretty cool stuff. I mean,
so from 30,000 feet or so, they're talking about looking at stars. How many quadrillions of purported miles away are those stars?
Well, that's what she obsesses over in her presentation.
Yeah,
is the stabilization technology of the gondola to maintain a steady. If you've ever tried to take a picture of something, handheld, you understand. She goes into all this detail about all the technology they use to point it, and it's like, okay, so you design it high spec, super high spec, to stay super stable, pointed quote out. But really, all the technology you seem to be using for practical applications are pointed down.
Right.
And you can see down to the license plate with a drone.
Right.
And a balloon guided platform.
Right.
So, am I really believing you're looking at Jupiter? I don't believe that you're looking at Jupiter.
No.
I think you're looking at me.
Yeah.
And where I'm going. And whether I'm exploring where I should be exploring or where I shouldn't be exploring.
Right.
That's what I...
Yeah.
Just my opinion.
Yeah. Oh, I think that's a good intuition.
I'm a little pissed.
Yeah. As everyone should be.
I'm a little pissed. Okay.
We're getting
Ancient History Gate.
This one's a massive rabbit hole. I mean,
we've
could
talked
get
about
into this.
carbon dating before, but check this out.
In 1934, the hammer appeared embedded inside a rock, and since this discovery, there has been many theories about its origin, and most importantly, its incredible age. But how did this hammer end up embedded inside the rock? Well, wait until you hear this. For the hammer to finish inside the rock, it had to have been built before the rock was formed, and that would be hundreds of millions of years ago. According to the studies from the Institute of Columbia, the inside handle underwent the process of carbonization, and the head of the hammer was built with an iron purity only achievable with modern-day technology. According to analysis, the head of the hammer consists of 97% pure iron, 2% chlorine, and 1% sulfur. Surprisingly, researchers also found that the iron had undergone a process of purification and hardening. The portion of the stone surrounding the hammer head also presented abnormalities, seeming to have merged with some type of sheath covering the hammer. According to geologists, the slow process of
Okay, I think we've watched enough, right? Like, just
completely obliterated the Darwinian narrative with this evidence here, because their timelines are warped. They don't know how rocks really form.
Look,
they don't know
even
any of
the
this shit.
mainstream paleontologists say there's a missing link. Okay, if there's a missing link, why am I listening to you?
Narrative. Yeah, it's
Why am I
not a
listening
good
to you?
theory. It's not a good theory because it's based on just droves of incomplete.
So hold on a second.
Data and question marks.
Maybe I wasn't paying attention in school, but the modern agricultural age started around 6,500 years ago. That's it?
Purportedly.
6,500? So like the Bronze Age, the Stone Age, that was before that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, but how far back? It keeps getting pushed back.
Yeah.
It keeps getting pushed back.
Yeah.
And Egypt doesn't make any sense.
No.
Egypt makes no sense.
No.
Okay, this is one I saw in college. And I was like,
hammer has to be hundreds of millions of years old. I mean, give me a break.
Look, I could have put.
How about you just don't understand how the rock came to be around the hammer?
I could have put.
And you don't know the date of the hammer,
Right.
I mean,
well, the carbon dating thing is its own little beast, but like, there's enough even institutional admissions of things that call into question the mainstream, Indiana Jones version of reality.
Sure.
Okay, here's one I saw. This is 2006, right? So, like I said, I was in college. I saw this article about a dinosaur bone that was found in Mexico, which, let's check it out. Actually, it was broken into fragments and dissolved in acid in Schweitzer's laboratory at North Carolina State University in Raleigh. Cool beans, she says, looking at the image on the screen. And it was big news indeed last year when Schweitzer announced she had discovered blood vessels and structures that look like whole cells inside T-Rex bone, the first observation of its kind. 68 million years old, purportedly. So something's not right.
Probably a bird.
Something's not right.
A bird bone.
No, but something's not right.
Yeah.
Either it's not a quote 68 million year old dinosaur bone, or it's a dinosaur bone that's not at 68 million years old.
Right.
Something's not right here.
Right. Something's not right here. I personally, my take on this is that they really don't have as good of a beat as they think they do on forensically classifying
You mean
bones.
Steven Spielberg doesn't know about dinosaurs?
He's regurgitated what he's been told about dinosaurs, just like everyone else, because there's no primary contiguous skeletal proof of any dinosaur. 90+% of dinosaurs only have 10% of the bone assemblage. Everything else is imagination.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Dinosaurs are for
just the
kids and for
truth.
pajamas and cartoons. I mean,
Santa
I have
Claus.
to echo
I mean,
Eddie
come on.
Bravo on this
Yeah.
point. Or no, it's Eric Dubé, actually. He was the one who promoted the idea that dinosaurs are for kids. They are. I mean,
They are.
I mean, I talked about...
I loved dinosaurs when I was 5 and 6. You know, I mean, I was obsessed with them. I memorized probably dozens of different kinds.
Yeah.
You know, then all the different, plastic figurine toys and everything. I mean, it's a big industry.
Yeah, but on the subject of ancient history gate, there's a gentleman, gosh, it was a TED Talks, stonemason, What was his name? There was a TED Talks about the ancient giants who ruled America, and he discussed the Smithsonian cover-up of skeletal remains discovered across North America,
all over,
in burial mounds, in just
river
fields,
valleys,
farmland, etc.
Yeah.
I got it. Jim Vieira.
Dude, nice. Nice memory there.
Yeah, the thing is, it's like banned TED Talk, right?
I used to met.
That's Rupert Sheldrake, who's also interesting. Morphic resonance. This is kind of a redirection of modern theoretical physics back towards the ether a little bit. Sheldrake's interesting, but again, I don't think he really goes quite far enough in linking up with Tesla. But he has some interesting kind of reclassifications of the whole realm of phenomenology being a very important scientific field.
Yeah, of course, with the December 10th YouTube policy change, which also with a requisite, I'm sure, algorithm change.
Yeah,
it's harder than ever to find the shit that you wanted to watch not that long ago. But I recommend people look up for Ancient History Gate,
right,
which is number 12 on our list of mega singularities. The Jim Vieira TED banned discussion on they were ancient monolithic sites in North America and ancient giant skeletons with double rows of teeth published in numerous local newspapers, etc. And also interviews that he did personally with Native Americans in the area to discuss burial mounds and other anomalous granite large monolithic structures that were classified in our textbooks as colonial era
construction
root cellars, even though they didn't have the technology at the time to do such. And it's an incredible expose of the Ancient History Gate, which
it's huge.
It's coming to a head.
It's coming to a head
in 2020. I really think so.
Look at the Mormon temple. Out in Salt Lake City, these little pioneers with horse and buggy are supposed to have logged all this limestone and stuff and created this, freaking massive cathedral in the middle of the desert. Like, come on,
no problem.
Yeah, no problem. They're just real strong and committed workers.
There were a lot of them.
There's I guess like 20,000 people who are all like incredible craftsmen and are working around the clock forever and don't eat or do anything else. Like, of course, that's what they did to build that structure. Like, bullshit.
Right. So, I mean, we could talk about Ancient History Gate forever because there are just so many examples. And there are archaeological discoveries happening all the time.
Of examples.
But let's move to number 13, which is a very numerologically significant number. Pedogate. Pedovores, Pizzagate, call it what you want. The question is, for 2020, who will burn at the stake, if anyone, and what will we learn? And a recent bit of news on this, the only real Brexit seems to be the royal family from the castle. Don't know if you heard about that, but I wonder why. These guys, what's going on? There's turmoil with the royal family.
Away from the public
it's not proper. They say these things are not. What was it, Prince Andrew?
Becoming.
Excuse me.
This is not becoming.
They're not becoming. But it is actually in line with all of your past historical behavior. I mean, are you kidding me?
Oh man! And then there was that one interview with Prince Andrew's lawyer where he implicated Seville, Jimmy Seville.
Really?
To the Royals, accidentally Freudian slip as a counterexample.
No way,
dude! I've got it.
You got
next time. I will send that one to you.
Okay.
because it's also buried. It's another one of these completely buried videos.
Well, so the other one is this Carmen San
Diego shit with Ghislaine Maxwell. Ghislaine Maxwell.
Ghislaine Maxwell. Good one. Oh, shit.
Ghislaine Maxwell. I mean, come on. That's gotta be like...
It's a stage name.
It's a stage name.
Well, I mean,
Robert Maxwell, he was changed his name. He was some crazy, long name.